And welcome to the Film Science Podcast, a podcast where we are challenged with articulating a love for art and storytelling. Today I am joined by my pro-privatization kind of friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'm glad everybody could join us because today we will be discussing Paul Verhoeven's 1987 film, RoboCop. I gotta throw you a bone every once in a while because you are a fan of the 80s vibes in film. I believe this was both of our first times seeing this, and I didn't really know what to expect out of RoboCop. I know there's a tale of sequels, a remake. It has some kind of foothold in pop culture, but it's always kind of lived in the space of the Terminator films, Star Wars, Rambo maybe. I've never seen any of these, but I'm very happy to report back that I liked RoboCop a lot, actually. I really liked this satirical take on the privatization of a police force, this almost corporate infiltration into the government, this self-awareness of maybe police brutality. And it's kind of funny because the plot, the beat to beat of what happens is pretty simple. And I don't know if it's just a formula that works, having this kind of very reflective satire, almost prophetic, because the film does ultimately just come full circle on Murphy getting his revenge, while at the same time, probably one of the weaker parts of the film, but rediscovering his humanity. It's really kind of an interesting hand of ideas that give you just enough from every angle that you, for the most part, don't ask for too much more. There's something really nice about the essence of a cop and thinking about their relationship with their family, with their kids and their spouse, and how that's probably a hard dynamic in general. And then we have this person who basically loses it all, including his life. And of course, throughout the film, kind of remembers the Murphy inside. But I get this sense of, even pre-RoboCop, Murphy missed out a lot. But I'm very curious, how do you feel about RoboCop?
Why was this movie pretty good? Looking at the plot, or even the movie title, or the movie poster, it feels like it's gonna be a very lame sci-fi movie. I'm with you on it giving these Terminator, Rambo vibes, something you don't want to watch. I've never seen those either, so it's funny that we say that. But I too was very surprised by how much I liked this movie. Because although I have a soft spot for 80s film, I don't have a soft spot for sci-fi films. I liked all the story elements of the film. They were structured very well. But more surprisingly, I also enjoyed the sci-fi themes, the sci-fi elements, the concepts. We have these thematic elements of corporate control, humanity versus technology, identity versus memory. And yes, we have these elements in other sci-fi films that I'm not a fan of, but something here just works so well. It's executed very well. We have these commercials, news reports, these segments spread throughout the movie, which immediately let me know that there's something to be said here. Which I'm not going to lie, it wasn't super clear to me at first what was trying to be said. I feel like I almost need to rewatch the movie to fully grasp all the commentary, especially the social commentary they're trying to make. Because we also have that weird TV show, not sure if it's a real TV show or not, playing in the background. It gives off these very eerie vibes, and I agree with you, these very strange tones. I did like that we gave RoboCop an identity crisis, something I was missing in Dogman. I got it here. He grapples with his humanity because he was essentially forced to be a machine and a man. And I think you said this too, we play around with this idea of memory and memory shaping us into the people we are. And on that note, do memories make us people? Is RoboCop a person? By the end of the film, RoboCop has come to terms with not only his situation, but with his identity. He acknowledges that he has a name. He is now Murphy. And it's this bittersweet moment that I very much enjoyed. The cinematography of the film is great. I see how the cinematography reinforces these themes. We have these crazy first-person shots of Murphy's point of view when he is RoboCop. We have the grittiness and the darkness of the city against all the cleanliness and sterileness of the corporate world. Again, we have these fake commercials and news segments and stuff, but they're placed throughout the film in such a way that it makes this media representation really stand out. I don't know if this is a quotable film. Did people who watched this film back in the day quote this? But the dialogue was great, especially for an 80s movie. That always tends to be my number one critique of 80s film. The dialogue sucks. But I found it to be super effective here. Like any decent film, yes, it uses the dialogue to move the plot along and establish character and motivation, but it doesn't waste its chance for characters to speak. It gives this satire, it gives these one-liners that are freaking awesome, they're hilarious, and then there's something extra we do here with RoboCop's dialogue that it expands as he develops into a human, or into his acceptance of being part of humanity. The more he talks, the more we notice him coming into terms with his identity, and it's awesome. The cast is crazy, with Kurtwood Smith, aka Red Foreman, and Miguel Ferrer. It was nice to see those faces. Not sure if they were established at the time or what, but I very much enjoyed them. I liked most of the characters, but especially the bad guys. I liked them a lot. They were hilarious. They almost felt cartoonish, but not overly cartoonish that it was weird. They also gave me the Warriors vibes.
Yeah, the only good part about the Warriors was the cartoony gangs.
Yeah, exactly. The henchmen were that for me. The cartooniness of their characters.
Yeah, and surprise, surprise that it works when it's not the focus. And don't forget Ray Wise, Leland Palmer, Laura Palmer's dad.
Oh, yes. Yes, I forgot about him. And I kept racking my brain. I'm like, there's more than these two people that I wanted to mention. But those were very nice surprises as well. But my absolute favorite part of this movie was the gore and the violence and how this movie did not play around. No character was safe from getting shot, from getting killed. From the start of the film to the end of the film, I kept telling myself, no way are they about to shoot this person, and lo and behold, that person gets shot. And it doesn't stop, and I absolutely loved it. This film is a cautionary tale. It gives me Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep vibes and Oryx and Crake. All its elements, from the simplicity of the plot to the dialogue, the cinematography, everything in this film is very cohesive and knows exactly what it's doing. It's very rough and tough, and I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, well said. It's kind of hard to articulate why this film works so well, because if you were to look at any thread by itself, it would look like it left a lot to be desired. But it has this cartoony flavor, mixed with this Aesop flavor, mixed with just how brutal the world can be, the dog-eat-dog world. It's really strange how it all comes together, because, yeah, like the villains, they are probably the most cartoony, the most G.I. Joe-ish. Murphy rediscovering who he is. It asks less of the question of, is the RoboCop type person, is a cyborg, is an android, a human too, and it asks more of the question who Murphy was. It kind of localizes it, and it's genius because you then can ask the bigger question. The movie doesn't need to ask it for you. Your imagination is going to take you there. Why does this board-ran organization have so much of a grasp on the cops? It really never bothers to ask you the question of how this came to be, what happened, It just guarantees the seeds to be planted and sprout for you to ask that question yourself.
Yeah, those news segments and the commercials do a great job implanting that seed. You don't need a news outlet to tell you what to think about what's going on in the world, but they're a really great way to make you start thinking about what is being said in the movie, especially the commercials. The news segments were a little too much for me. That's probably something I'd like to go back and rewatch and listen. But the commercials were the ones that stuck out to me the most, because we had the heart center commercial where I guess you could buy a new heart. But then what was killer about it was how they proceed to say they provide financing and extended warranty and health tax credit on your heart. And there's something so eerie about that. Or like the Nukem game, where I think it was a play on Battleship. And these types of commercials are the key to that satire. They're making fun of our consumerism.
And also making fun of the commercial itself, because the thing in the commercial is always better than what you're going to get. And so there's this like kind of complimentary sensationalism with the news outlets.
Yeah, there's so much mocking in those commercials.
Yeah, and that Nukem game's not going to be as cool as it looks, right?
Like Battleship. At least for me, I think that game is very lame. And with these commercials, these segments, and our main topic here of technology, it brings a great question on why this corporate greed leads to a dystopian society, and why crime and poverty are often seen as the aftermath of new technologies. The city looks so dirty, so grimy, so unkept, that I feel like Paul here is saying something about how technology, if controlled by the wrong people, and in this case, corporations, society will suffer.
Sure, and at the same time, Paul is obviously letting us in on how much control corporations have over the government. And kind of back to your point about these commercials and stuff, the I'd buy that for $1 commercial or TV show or whatever that was. There's also another point in here that a character makes. I think it's Morton. I can't remember. He says it's a free society, except there ain't nothing free. These kind of points remind me of Gilbert Grape, when something is happening, some action is happening on screen, and then someone in the background is saying something that is not literally related to the action, but it is. You know, there's this weird, surrealistic maybe flavor of storytelling where there seems to be this self-awareness in the movie of people wanting stuff for free and favoring monopolies, corporatizations of everything we love. And that point of I'd buy that for $1 rings so true today, because everyone wants something for nothing. We love our sales. We love our streaming services when they're so cheap. And it's another one of those points of kind of a byproduct idea of what the movie is offering you in the literal experience of watching it. The movie never seems to really suggest that corporations appealing to the lowest common denominator and making everything cheaper and cheaper so they can make more and more off of it conditions us to just, wanting cheap stuff. The so-called post-capitalistic tendencies of the 1980s is probably pretty quaint compared to today. So it's actually kind of crazy how much that little video clip of the man saying, I'd buy that for $1 really resonated with me.
No, it's definitely resonating. It not only gets played a few times throughout the film, but that specific scene in that TV show gets played throughout the film with that catchphrase. And that almost is the main story here in the movie, even though the story is about RoboCop. But RoboCop is just a tool in this movie for the main point to get said. You said these governments and corporations have this control But Murphy here is just a tool. Technology is just a tool to exploit for these corporations and the government. But like Murphy, they're playing with people's lives.
I mean, it's really on point for you to say that too, because these companies, these CEOs, the execs, the board members are making all these very big, wide sweeping decisions at your Microsofts and your Apples and whatnot, and they shut down departments of thousands of people. They make these big moves when it feels like they don't understand that they're playing with people's livelihoods.
And that's very well said, and that sort of answers my question on why crime and poverty is always the aftermath of these types of films, these types of thoughts. Because you're playing with people's lives, you're playing with people's jobs. You're playing with people's jobs. Jobs are money, and when you have no money, you turn to poverty, or you become poor, I guess, and then you turn to a life of crime because you can no longer afford your necessities. So all of that just is so cohesive.
While also not being the bold through line in the film. It's really kind of genius that the major plot is happening in the background. But Murphy is mostly our perspective. The ones who have most to lose are our perspective. And of course, Murphy weaves in and out continuously throughout the whole film with his own thread. And it's such an interesting, kind of challenging point of kind of what I was saying earlier about Murphy and his relationship with his family. Because those flashbacks, those remembering moments feel almost like memories of a memory. He's been divorced. His kid's grown up. They've been out of his life for X amount of years already before he became RoboCop. That's how they made me feel. And so now we're challenged with, did the corporations take that away from Murphy, or did Murphy just choose to not be involved?
Yeah, we get really little characterization from Murphy pre-RoboCop. The only moment we really get where we know a little bit about him, or maybe the type of person he could be, is the moment where he and Anne are talking by the cop car. I don't know really what sparked that interaction, but he's flipping his gun in his hand, and she asks him basically like, why are you doing that? And he tells her, oh, my son. He likes when I do this, and then he explains why. But that's really the only character moment we get from him, or really the relationship establishing moment we get from him and his son. And we get nothing else of his wife. And even with the memory of his wife, she doesn't finish telling him what she saw or what she felt. I don't remember what exactly she said in the dream or the memory, but she didn't get to finish telling him. And also, Murphy got transferred. I thought he was a new cop, but no, it turns out he got transferred from one division that was supposedly pretty good into the Detroit one.
Yeah, all these things kind of scream that his family's not present, right?
Yeah, that's what I was at least trying to get to. There's so much mystery there.
Like the perfect amount, because it's like...
Well, wait a minute. Did your wife not finish what she's saying because you don't want to remember that she left you?
Yeah, it comes across like Murphy's guilty about something with his family not being there, how things ended, them dying, maybe, I don't know. Like these parents out there who cope with their guiltiness by constantly like reminiscing and, remembering the good old days of when you were a baby, how I held you for the first time, how you
needed me.
Yeah. And it's always the same moments. There's like 5, 6, 10 moments that parent brings up, that guilty person brings up. And we see the same flashbacks over and over again with Murphy, like he is guilty. And just the way he looks and acts, it just feels like he's kind of filled with sadness. And he lost his family, now he is just his job. And then he literally does just become his job.
Which that brings me to the point, why Murphy? There were a lot of other cops being murdered by Clarence. Was Murphy the only one who survived? Was it right place, right time? Or I guess in this case, wrong place, wrong time? Or did they see, or was Murphy targeted in any way and saw that he would make the best RoboCop because of his commitment? Now that you said that.
There's definitely something to that because it helps reinforce the idea of him going all in on the thing that he was already all in on that led to the demise of his relationship with his family. And it may be a little bit of a serendipitous thing because there's a timing element too with Morton, finally getting the funding or whatever to make it happen.
That's true. The ED 209 malfunctioning
was super cool.
But that led to Morton now having the spotlight to build in his initiative.
Right. So first and foremost, it might just be great storytelling.
Oh.
Especially because I feel like it's not handed to you. And it seems to be supported through at least some of the seeds of imagination.
It's pretty amazing that this film gave such a concrete story with no pacing issues and no hand-holding.
It's really to the film's benefit that the through line, the action, is pretty simple. But there's so much texture in the background. And some of that background comes to the forefront, especially with the commercials and what we see in the boardroom and whatnot. But in essence, none of that stuff is the point of the movie. So it never really gets the chance to get it in its own way, you could say.
Yeah, that's very well said. How did you feel about the reveal of the fourth directive? Was it expected? Was it anticlimactic?
Yeah, it was definitely anticlimactic. It's kind of maybe a funny thing to say in film in general, but it's kind of like on the noseness or pretentiousness. But it's one of these very convenient things to just stop Murphy when it's convenient, right? I thought it was going to be more along the lines of this AI thing to throw a wrench in there of, oh, Murphy isn't rediscovering who Murphy is, it's just part of his programming or something. I thought it was going to throw a wrench into the development of, or redevelopment of Murphy. But no.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I thought it was something that Murphy's mind, because we focus so much on memories, that's something his mind made up. And it was classified because he himself didn't know and no one knew. And then it would later, as he developed, would become known. Directive met when something happened.
Yeah, but nope, it's just you can't kill your creator, basically. It's like, okay, that's kind of lame. But
I did, however, like that the ending just ended on this technicality with the Directive 4.
Oh, yeah.
It was funny, but I would have liked to see something else.
And it's kind of funny, too, because it reinforces that Murphy's still mostly machine. He doesn't have that free will, if you even believe in free will to begin with, I guess.
How did you feel about Anne, his cop partner?
She's obviously kind of the weirdest inclusion in all of this film, I think. Because she's, in one sense, the other side of, her basically shaking him by the shoulders of like, you're Murphy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we get that in a really explicit sense, but she's suspicious of him, right?
I recognize that bottom.
Yeah, would you recognize the chin, the lips?
The jaw.
Like Batman kind of thing? Like, is that actually a decent enough disguise to... I'm not sure. I've never been tested in that way. And she maybe does reinforce this distance maybe between Murphy and his estranged family, because there is a little bit of flirtation maybe in the beginning with them two, at least on her side, because he's so checked out. he's dedicated to the work, but we don't get a big angle on Anne. She's just kind of the partner, and I will say probably doesn't detract from the greater plot or messaging, but she's definitely one of the weaker links.
Yeah, I'm there with you on really all those points. I'm also very glad that this film had such a tight focus, like we've said many times, that it didn't have a forced romance that I could see happening because of that flirtation in the beginning. Which is pretty ironic, because apparently she was asked to cut all her hair so she wouldn't be sexualized in any way, but she still came off as flirty in the beginning. But she was really just a tool for Murphy to rediscover himself.
Sure, and I appreciate the desexualization, I guess, because there is this visual component to a sci-fi police force military where we just completely neuter any semblance of sex appeal.
Yeah, it's almost like she could have been a male cop too. It didn't really matter what her sex was. As good as this movie is, and as much as I enjoyed it, there is something here that might be the silliest thing I have ever seen in a film, and that was ED 209's Roar. What was that? Which he was partially stop motion, by the way. I thought he looked great. I love that his downfall was a flight of stairs. Like, dang, who forgot to test the stairs on this robot, right? But that roar threw me off every single time.
It's kind of funny when the ED robot fell down the stairs. It reminded me of the abominable snowman from the Rudolph movie. Cornelius's big moment when the snowman fell off the cliff, and then at the end he's like, abominables bounce. It's like, all right, Cornelius.
Sure.
That's what it made me think of. That was pretty funny. And I don't know why the stop motion looks so cool in a film like this. You would think it would be really out of place, but there's something so neat about it. I don't know what that is. It's so bizarre. But yeah, the roar, the line roar, whatever. And maybe along with the stairs thing too, is it just this kind of jab observation of companies have great ideas, really cool inventions, and then they include these weird ass accoutrements, these weird ass bugs. Just like that's a weird oversight. That's a weird inclusion, you know?
Yeah. You know, it'd be really cool if we make this robot roar like a lion.
That's what the people want.
Okay. Oh, all right. Let's do it.
Because that would scare criminals.
Yeah, it was far too silly. The stairs, that was actually hilarious, and I did not find silly at all. But the roar did it for me.
Because I swear, when the robot fell, Murphy was even surprised. He's like, what just happened? And he kind of just waited there for a second, and he had won. He's like, oh, okay.
And it's really funny that ED-209 was, in the beginning of the film, accidentally killing someone. He malfunctioned, right? But he's the prized possession of this company. I mean, he's used as the security at the end. Let's stop RoboCop by putting ED-209 out here. Well, all he has to do is take him down a flight of stairs. He just, all of a sudden, becomes so silly. My favorite part in the movie was this PTSD experience he was having from getting shocked by the defibrillator. Not only is this the first time we're getting these first-person shots, so that's quite a switch for us, but he's getting these flashbacks of his kid, of his wife, and then we come back to it, and then he gets shocked again, and then he's getting these flashbacks of Clarence killing him all over again. And I don't know why that scene stood out to me so much, but it was really cool to watch. And then he dies. They even call his time of death. And you're like, what the crap? I guess maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much, because it was that feeling of, this movie doesn't play. We just killed our main guy, it feels like. Is this a false intro? We're like 20 minutes in. How can it be a false intro?
Yeah, it's a very surprising movie. The first person, almost, I would say, body cam kind of perspective.
Yeah.
I know the show Cops was starting, I think, in the late 80s. I don't know how big it was. But it's just another timely thing, because today the internet is obsessed with body cam footage.
Yeah.
AKA, how brutal was that cop with that person?
We don't change much, do we?
Well, there seems to be something pretty prophetic in this. Maybe obvious, if you paid attention of how things were going and over the course of the last 50 years. And dare I even classify this film as a post-structuralist film in the vein of David Lynch and David Foster Wallace?
I appreciate that's where your mind went. Because my mind went, and especially in the scenes where they were like fixing him up and doing those trials and whatnot, those scenes felt like a ride at Universal Studios. You know how they put you in those 4D rides and let you watch a video? And I could see that just being a ride getting turned into a robot, with how the characters were approaching. They were talking, they were clapping, like, oh, come on, man, you first, and like moving out the way. It felt kind of bizarre.
Yeah, supposedly kind of fun thing that I probably won't ever do again kind of deal. Much to the point of A Real Pain with Jesse Eisenberg too, and Kieran Culkin, going on this tour around Poland, going to the concentration camps and re-experiencing the Holocaust. A Real Pain's much singularly focused than RoboCop. You don't have to think too far to imagine a world where they're trying to sell you the Holocaust experience.
The last thing I want to mention is a shout out to my 3 favorite lines in the film. Of course, I'd buy that for $1. Hilarious. All the implications behind it. Awesome. There's also a line that Clarence says as he's throwing one of his henchmen out the van onto the cop car. And he says, "Can you fly, Bobby?" And that absolutely killed me. Hilarious. And there was another piece of dialogue that stuck out to me. And it was by the head honcho cop when he was addressing his fellow policemen. And I think they were trying to start a strike or something. And he reminds them, "We are not plumbers. We are police officers." And I guess that stuck out to me for so many reasons, but how everyone in their field has that other example of a job that maybe they don't put down, but put down in a way to signify the importance of their job. I know one of my coworkers loves saying, "We don't make shoes. We make medical devices." And him saying that, "We are not plumbers, we are police officers," it makes me wonder, is that a thing that every field says? We're not hot dog makers, we're pizza makers. I don't know,
I guarantee you every field has that. Plumbers probably say that about electricians. And electricians probably say it about plumbers.
We're not taxi drivers, we're Uber. And it was just so silly, and I don't know if I've ever heard it in a film as much as I've experienced it in real life.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's another little jab from Paul, kind of insinuating that don't you dare start thinking about a union up in this police force. Because we're hot off the heels throughout the 70s of a big movement of unionizing with cops and firefighters.
For sure, I could definitely see that there in that moment, especially with everything else going on that we see sprinkled throughout the police station. There's no control. There's just chaos.
All right, man. Well, thank you for watching RoboCop with me. I enjoyed that, and thank you for talking about it here today.
You're welcome.
Do you have a budget guess?
Based on other 80s films we watched, they tend to be on the lower side. I don't know if inflation gets taken into account or not on these budget guesses, but I'm going with 15 mil. There was a lot of movement. I'm sure there was some cost with RoboCop himself and RD-209. And I don't know how expensive it can get to make little segments inside your film, like the TV show, like the commercials, like the news reports. But the movie was also an hour 42 minutes, so I guess 15 makes sense.
Yeah, Murphy looked great, especially when he took his helmet off. I couldn't stop looking at the side of his head. I was like, man, why doesn't everything look this good?
It gave me the bad guy in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 vibes.
Yeah, that was clearly inspired by this, I would probably say. Much less money laundering was going on in the 80s too, compared to today. They probably laundered like a few $1 million back in the day, and now they launder hundreds of millions. Can you guess how much Snow White's going to be? Probably $400 million.
No way. No movie should cost that.
Well, it says here on the Wikipedia that it was 13.7 million.
Ooh, that was a nice guess.
And it went on to make 53.4 million. So it did all right for itself.
Good job, RoboCop. Good job, Paul.
And over on Letterboxd with 529,000 people, they weighed in at a 3.9. Very high.
Well, I'm right there with them. I'm giving it a 4. This is a great movie. This is one of the best sci-fi movies I've ever seen, especially thematically. A lot of sci-fi movies tend to miss the point of sci-fi, and there's more of a focus on the show. I guess I'm thinking Dune, Alien, or the worst sci-fi movie I've ever seen, Rebel Moon. But I enjoyed everything about this film. The story was so cohesive. It was executed really well. It was structured very well. No sort of pacing issues. No focus on the show. No focus on the spectacle. Although Murphy, RoboCop, looked great, you didn't focus on his suit or him. More on his feelings, his experiences. Maybe the one thing missing for me was some sort of emotional gut punch to really make this movie a 5.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of comes with the territory. I think that probably would have gotten a little messy very quickly.
I could see that.
I don't think the ceiling is that high for a satire, I think, in general.
Yeah, because it gave me Snowpiercer vibes.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I feel like this movie worked a lot better for me.
Sure. And it kind of comes down to the satirization, how it did it, how it represents the observation or critique. Because you're right. This film, RoboCop and Snowpiercer, couldn't exist without the same post-capitalistic takeover, right? They're both peas in that same pod, but like a bag of sunflower seeds, some of them taste really good and some of them are really gross, right? So, but they're all sunflower seeds. They should all kind of serve the same purpose. I'm kind of leaning towards a 3, but I'm stuck between a 3 and a 3.5.
Okay, that's good for you.
Yeah, there's something really special wrapped up in this film, and I can't stop thinking about it. But it is missing that very human element that is in a Godzilla -1 or Pig or Past Lives or something. I don't know. But thank you again for talking about this movie with me, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Filmistines. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Wednesday and Friday with brand new episodes on all of our free feeds like YouTube. Go subscribe to our YouTube. Our next episode will be on the new Bong Joon-ho movie, Mickey 17.
I'm so excited for that. You have no idea how excited I am for that. Bong Joon-ho and Robert Pattinson? Sign me up.
I'm very curious. I fear Warner Brothers and their producers are going to get in his way. And I hope Mickey 17 isn't a wild success. I hope it just finds enough success for Bong Joon-ho to do his next film. But I don't want him to get picked up by the Disney, and make a random show or Marvel movie, and we have to wait 3 years for that to come and go for him to do his next thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm scared he's getting too close to this black hole that is Hollywood, and we're going to lose him. Very afraid of that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Mickey 17 as well. Please look forward to that. That'll be a good episode, I'm sure. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe to our Patreon. Come request a movie. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/filmistines. And follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching, keep loving the magic of movies. This is The Filmistines, signing off.